Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
I move that we move into a closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel, student matters, litigation, and/or property. Second.
All those in favor?
Question.
Aye.
Yes.
Should it be or property or should it be and property? Do we have to specifically state that? Because or
We're
property is like,
supposed to specify exactly what we're talking about.
right.
But it
And I
says
don't know
or
what-
property. which is
Property.
weird.
Property is what we're saying.
And
Oh, so
property.
then let's redo that motion.
Say it,
So-
and property.
Yeah.
No. Is it only
No, just-
property? It's only property.
Okay.
Oh,
So we do
okay.
the whole motion.
Recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing property.
There you go.
Now, Joe, you want to second that again?
Second.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Thanks,
We are
Kathy.
now in executive session. We'll have our first opportunity for public comments. But right now, I don't have to do anything.
Yep, we're on.
The school board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of the meeting when recognized by the board president. We ask the comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask the comments begin by providing your name, address, and the school district in which you reside.
Go ahead, no, Kathy.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing this evening?
Good.
Whoops,
Good to see you.
I'm dropping things. That was a good imitation of the old FedEx commercial. Voiceover, fly right through it. That was great.
We have some regulars in the room, so. they never
There you
go.
go. I'm Mike Parnell. I'm with Missouri School Boards Association, and in that role with MSBA, I work with our school business programs and services. Have a variety of things to help districts either save money, recover funds, acquire goods and services, et cetera, whatever the case might be, all with the focus of helping you, therefore helping your students and your patrons. And one of the programs that Webster Groves participates in is the Payment Solutions P-Card program, and that is something that we offer in partnership with PFM Asset Management. And this past year, the district again earned a rebate through the use of the card. And I have with me this evening the check, and I also have a draft of a press release that you could use if you want to. You can do your own, whatever you want to do, and then some other information from PFM included in this envelope. And I have a display, little kind of a, not really a check, but a display board that you can use if you'd like in the district to set out for your patrons to see what that you're doing a little something there, trying to save some money, get some dollars back, et cetera.
Great.
So, present that to whoever.
Very good. John, you want to come up?
Okay.
Thank you very
I'll do that.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Good stuff. There you go.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for allowing me to come this evening and do that this evening.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
want
you
to
for
get that money
making
to
it
your
us,
hands.
right?
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime you want to come.
I did miss all the Christmas decorations because I was able to get here earlier this year, so I didn't see all of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't go
I'll
through
have
the
to
gridlock on
excuse
the
me, come back
night.
again
Yeah,
later.
you'll have to come back and bring us another
Thank you.
check.
Mike, as long as that envelope doesn't have a bill in it too, then
No,
that.
no bill in there, not that I know of. Not that I know of.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mr. Beck?
Dave Buck. I don't have any money, but I bought an extra pancake breakfast on Saturday morning. This Wednesday, to the district's credit, you guys are showing the film Beyond Measure over at Hickson. I'm very familiar with the film and Sir Ken Robinson. It's all about pushing the envelope out on innovative education and learning for students and for schools. It's a terrific film and it really makes you think. And as you all know, versus quantitative thinking, creative thinking and innovation thinking, there's always more than one right answer. There's always a second right answer and a third right answer. And so coming back to a favorite topic of the computer school, I think there's at least 3 right answers. None wrong, but 3 right. The first one is to change its name and keep it the way it is. Let it run the way it is. That's answer 1. Answer 2 is to change its name, but convert it to a neighborhood school to serve the North Webster and surrounding neighborhoods, what we've talked about. The third right answer is to do what the collaborative was originally set out to do when John and his team and the committee first started, which is called the Innovation School, right? To create a separate innovation school that would push the envelope and experiment and try. It would be like a laboratory of education and new learning techniques that could be proved out, and that if they tested well and were validated, they could then be farmed out to the other schools in the district. That's the third right answer for the computer school, is to change its name to something, maybe it's just innovation school, but make it be a beyond measure school. And so I think there are 3 right answers. I just wanted to come and lay them out. It's not up to me to decide which one. I like to create, so I lean this way, but I like the neighborhood school big time, and I just wanted to let you know that you have options with computer school.
Thank you. Other public comments? All right. Everyone have an opportunity to look at the correspondence log. I believe that was updated recently. Board calendar, anything in particular we need to address here? Looks like we have.
I think so.
I have one.
Do you have something? Yeah.
Community engagement, November 5th. And I was thinking
thank
the
you.
one at Lucky's Market worked so well that in January, could we maybe try a Lucky's Market in the middle of the month in addition to meeting at Breadco the first Sunday? Just to see if we reach more people, if we did it after work, a Wednesday, say, or, sometime during the middle of the month at Lucky's, just to see if we get more turnout. Also, it's in Rock Hill instead of in Webster.
Do you think both?
I'm thinking both, and just compare what the turnout is.
I mean, we have not had good
Or
turnout
maybe
at-
we don't do one the first Sunday in January because it's holidays, and do one, later in the month instead, and then go back to the first Sunday in February. That would be fine too. I just want to throw it out there.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts about that?
My only concern personally is that my schedule during the week. Sunday I can almost, I try to keep that under my control unless I'm flying, but doing something after hours during the week is just difficult for me.
Yeah, me too. All right, so,
But I can take the 5th, the Sunday the 5th at Seamless Bread.
okay,
I haven't been there since summertime, so.
okay.
I can do that too.
Okay, so Steve and Joe are November 5th, and then how about when we get closer to January, Jean, we can
Yeah.
talk about scheduling another date?
That's a good idea.
Okay, anything else on the calendar? Need to address?
Too early
Okay.
for Turkey Day.
Too early for Turkey Day? I know,
Chili
it's going to be
fest.
here before we know it.
Yeah.
Okay, reports from superintendent and staff. Ms. Joanne Kite, I saw you earlier, there you go.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to take this time to introduce Clifton Larson Allen. They're actually our auditors. They actually did our audit this year for the 16-17 school year. They'd like to bring to you the preliminary draft of that audit and then open it up for questions. I'm going to introduce Donna Dottie. Donna is actually a resident of Webster Groves, but she's actually the director of Clifton Larson Allen, and she's going to present to you this evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everyone. As Joanne said, my name is Donna Doty, and I'm a resident, but also a director at Clifton Larson Allen. And Nick Chirito was here with me, and he was the engagement in charge, the senior on the job this year. He's worked on it for several years, and he and I both worked on it last year as well. So you received the draft financial statement, and so I'm just going to spend just a few minutes to hit some high points of the draft. And at the end or during, please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. But I'll keep it really high level. So our audit, well, first of all, we are hired by the board, but we obviously work directly with Joanne and Bruce and Dr. Simpson and their team. And they pull a large amount of information for us during the audit. And it's a tedious task, but we appreciate all their help that they give us during the audit. It's not a one-day occurrence by any means. It takes a lot of work to get it prepared for us. But the audit itself is divided into several parts. There's the financial statements side. There's a single audit side, which deals with the federal funding that also covers the yellow book, the government auditing standards. And then there's the Missouri statute piece of it. So there are definitely different components of it. Same as they have been in the past, but it is broken down into several different pieces. On page 1 of the draft is the independent auditor's report. And that is basically explains what the audit is, what management's responsible for, what the audit does. And within there, there's a section that discusses the opinion. And as you should expect, you've got a clean opinion. And you should expect that every year from the records. And also, one thing to note that this is a cash basis financial statement, not an accrual basis. It's been like this for a long time, but it is just one thing to note that it is based on the cash basis. And then the next part of the financial statements, pages 4 through 12, is the MD&A, and that is the management discussion and analysis part of the financial statements. And that is where the administration basically gets to tell their story, to explain, it compares prior year numbers to current year numbers, it points out key highlights, key financial highlights, and it also goes into depth to just explain what some of the information is, what certain types of receipts mean, what types of disbursements mean, as well as what funds are used by the district. But it's a really good tool for the administration just to be able to tell what the story was for the year financially. And then pages 13 to 20 is actually the part, the guts of the financial statement, and it's the actual financial statement piece of it. One page of it, there's the statement of net position, and definitely some other pages within there that discuss budget to actual. But one of the kind of key points, we're going to actually talk true numbers. Page 17 is the statement of receipts and disbursements and changes in fund balance. And during the year, the receipts totaled $65.3 million. Disbursements were at $61 million. So this year in 16-17, the receipts over disbursements were $4.3 million. And that left a positive net position or fund balance of $24.7 million at the end of the day, compared to $20.4 in the end of 2016. And then moving on from that part of the financial statements, pages 21 through 34 are the footnotes. And those are basically the policies of the district, financial policies of the district, as well as just general explanations again about what types of funds are used, the explanations of different categories within the financial statements. And then we move on to pages 35 through 46. And that is the supplemental information, the piece kind of behind the rest of the financial statements. And in there is the single audit portion. And that is the portion that we look at, the federal funding, the grants. And so this year, we have to do some analysis to see which of those we're going to test. And this year, we tested Title I. And there were no findings during that testing, in fact. And also in the supplementary information, there are other reports that go along with that single audit report, the work that we did with that, as well as comparing other budget to actual numbers. And then the last final section is the Missouri reporting, pages 47 through the end. And those are basically required by DESE. Mainly within there is the selected statistics, which includes things like statistics relating to the calendar, attendance, lunch counts, finance, and transportation costs within there. Again, with that, Just as with the single audit, there were no findings on that as well. And then with any audit, we're also required to create a governance letter, which is a communication to those on the board, those in governance, since you weren't there with the audit every single day of the audit, going through our questions and stuff, just to give you a high level that there were no disagreements, things of that sort. But it's a good idea to just make sure you read through that. But it just kind of highlights a few parts of the key parts of the audit. And that, I think, is it in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
I think David has one. Excuse me. David?
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. So in the past, so you commented that this is on a cash basis, and in the past there have been questions as to whether that is an appropriate method. I'm presuming that there has been no change, and that continues, in your opinion, to be the most appropriate method with which to provide the accounting information.
I believe you said it's
The question
the
is,
cash
is
basis.
cash basis, does that continue to be an appropriate method of accounting?
Versus
For us.
It does, it does. There, I mean, you have the option. It obviously doesn't show everything that the accrual base does, but it's, I mean, it shows you what it shows you. You know, it shows you the receipts and it shows you the disbursements. I don't know the current statistic, but I know in Missouri, the majority of school districts do use the cash basis or a modified cash basis versus a full accrual. I don't know an accurate statistic right now on what.
Sure.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Jean?
It's always nice to get a clean audit, but we do have a new CFO and some changes taking place. Did you see anything that's better than it used to be, or did you have any suggestions for the current team?
Well, I myself have only been on it for 2 years, so Bruce was here last year and this year, and I know Julianne's been here for many years, but, you know, we even ask questions, you know, in the news. You see districts that are having problems or certain things that have problems, and so we always kind of want to bring that to the forefront and just see what are you doing that would prevent it from happening to you. And I know we had that conversation this year on, you know, I feel like, you know, no one can look at every single transaction, like as part of an audit, you know. But I know there are tools in place now that, even though there are checks and balances, you know, each month there's checks being looked at, like audited per se, internally. I know Bruce he picks some that just look weird. And I know you all do too, because he says sometimes that they duplicate what he's asked and what other people ask. And I mean, that's really what we like to see, is just that, you know, dive in, pull your shirts up, you know, your shirt sleeves up a little bit and look at some numbers and ask some questions, because it keeps everyone on their toes, and I think that's happening.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I
And
want
I'm
to
gonna
just applaud you and your team, because you do conduct such a thorough process. But you're also very kind, and I emphasize thorough. I think everybody in central office would say thorough. But you're also very cordial and hospitable and
Thank
friendly
you.
with how you do it.
Thank you. Well,
So I
Joanne and her
appreciate
team
that.
are amazing how responsive,
Yeah,
you know,
kudos
because
to
an audit
Joanne.
can drag on, and it's up to the people that we come in to deal with, that, you know, sometimes our questions may not be like right at that moment, but later on we think of something else or things,
Yeah.
but they're always very responsive, and it's a pleasure to work with the district.
Yeah, and Joanne leads these efforts, and so I can't thank you enough, Joanne, too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, a lot of times Bruce gets all the glory, but
He
this
does.
one's behind the scenes and has been for many, many
Bruce is on
years.
vacation, right? We know who does the work.
I know you do.
But it is a significant comfort zone to
Yeah.
know that we have the right people in place, looking at the right things, and you guys feel that everything's where it needs to be.
Right.
So,
All right. That would be awesome.
We wouldn't plan on a long board meeting, would we?
We gotta do that at some point now, right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So close. Okay, John, I think you are up,
Yeah.
transfer student transition plan.
Yeah, the next item of business is Normandy Schools Collaborative. Charles Pearson, their superintendent, and a DESI rep was present. want to discuss a particular transition plan similar to what all the school districts did in St. Louis County, St. Charles County for Riverview Gardens School District next year, should they go regain full accreditation, which they are hoping to do in the not too distant future. And so jumping off of the same agreement that was we approved last year or they created last year, we tweaked a little bit, is what is kind of before you tonight. Doug has looked at this. I kind of put in the content just so you knew that currently we had 9 students from the Normandy Schools Collaborative in our schools. The financial effect would go into effect the reduced tuition the moment those children, the school district regained its accreditation. It's a provisional accreditation. Last year with Riverview, that happened shortly after the first of the year. We anticipate there's a high probability that would happen again. The estimated net loss to our budget in the spring would be about $22,000, a little over $22,000. And as you've read, the program kind of phases out, based on 3 years or the next transition period for the students. So tonight, what we're doing, answer any questions, and if you're open to approving this agreement.
You had a question? Oh. Remind me again, those natural breaking points?
The natural breaking points would be they're allowing children to stay another 3 years after this year. And then the breaking points for us would be 5th grade, 8th grade, and then the high school. So students who transition into the high school next year, which we don't have any, they would actually be allowed to continue by the agreement for 4 years. So we'll have one student who, our 2 high school current students will be able to graduate. We have 1 2nd grader, 2 4th graders who will be able to continue to 5th grade. We have 3 5th graders who will be able to enter 6th grade and stay till 8th grade if they choose, as well as a 7th grader who will stay towards 8th grade. As always, it's amazing when you talk about a school that has lost their accreditation and the money that's going out to other school districts. I believe Charles mentioned something to the neighborhood of $5 million or something that leaves the Normandy Schools Collaborative. So as the model is just, it's not great. I'm watching my words. It's not a great model. So hopefully in the new MSIP 6 that will be coming out, they'll have an improved model for how they help school districts that are unaccredited.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, because I know when we discussed this with regards to Riverview Gardens, I know we had a very lengthy discussion, and I was very, very comfortable how the board decided to proceed and the breakpoints that we agreed to and everything. So if this is modeled after that,
Exactly.
then I would not have any, apprehension whatsoever in approving this for use with Normandy. Should they be, and we hope they will be,
Yeah.
allow that opportunity to progress.
I agree. It's important to be fair, treat both districts equally.
I'm good with it.
Okay, as am I.
So you need a motion? I make a motion, we approve the transfer student transition plan for the Normandy School Collaborative as presented.
Also second that.
All right, motion approved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right. I believe we are on to Dr. Wiley.
Hello, everyone. Just wanted to.
Happy little smiling face.
If you're gonna share with each other, you gotta share with the class.
Did you order the pizza?
We did want to slice. I apologize.
You're fine.
I just wanted to share briefly an update with regard to the goal specifically related to human resources and talent acquisition. So our goal really is to develop a plan to retain and hopefully hire more professional staff of color. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an update of what we've been doing so far. We have been working to develop a plan so that all of our candidates can have an opportunity to learn at Webster Grove School District. So one major component of that will be for this year, we're hoping to do at least 2 events. One will be more like a diversity fair where we will have an actual opportunity for candidates to come and have exposure to our administrators and teachers. In addition, we're hoping to have what we call maybe like a Webster Groves School District shares model. What we found in some of our dialogue is that a lot of candidates of color that we've spoken to either don't know about Webster Groves School District and or don't think the Webster Groves School District is a place for them for whatever reasons that there may be. So our goal is to have more of an informal opportunity for candidates of color, diverse candidates to come and learn of Webster, and for us to learn of them and for them to learn of us. A non-threatening, not judgmental, not, we're not evaluating you in any way, but to have some opportunities to share who we are as a district, what we believe, and for them to learn with us. We're hoping to involve teachers in this process as well, because we think that that's crucial, so that teachers can learn from teachers and can see the similarities within each other, because primarily that's who they'll work with. They're not going to work a lot with the principal. They work really closely with their colleagues. So that'll be something that we really will work on. The other bullet points that I've listed there, the partnership with universities in order to gain access. We've talked a lot about that. Really, how can we capture and figure out who our candidate pools are at the sophomore level? So we've talked about a number of things. First thing is actually gaining access to the colleges and universities to actually go into the classrooms and present a little bit about Webster, take some of our information, some of our literature, talk to them about who we are, what we believe about children. If there's a professor we can partner with, so this can be an ongoing partnership in a certain class as students are matriculating through. In addition, a lot of the students are entering into their practicums or their observation hours and things of that nature. If we can get more applicants or candidates to come during that time before student teaching, so we can start building relationships with them so that we're not just meeting them the first day they come to be a student teacher, but we've seen these students come in, conduct observations, be in classrooms, maybe even sub. We're going to offer them a lot of opportunities to sub, maybe when they, are not, those days they don't have classes all day. So that's what we're hoping to do, which is a little bit different because we really just want to partner with their educational process and learn about them and really create a relationship with them so that maybe Webster is their top priority when they are actually graduating. And we think that that'll be a higher level of success for them when they are actually interacting with their colleagues. And the major components of this is recruitment, retention, and hiring. Those really being our major focuses. So we talked about the diversity fair and the Webster Grove School District Shares event. We want to have some PD biases, knowing that all of us individually have our own biases wherever they come from. It's just who we are as people. And how do we support our administrators? And then how do we support our teachers so that when those diverse candidates of color do come and they are part of interview processes, that we make the interview process a little bit more welcoming, that we make everything a little bit more equitable and feel a little bit more collaborative than it is, we don't know you, you don't know, tell us about us, that kind of thing. We found that to be a deterrent for some of our applicants of color. So we want to provide PDF support for administrators, and then we also want to provide support to our new teachers between the years of 3 and 5. Every teacher, when they're hired, receives a mentor for year 1 and year 2. But what do we do for teachers in year 3 to 5? And you guys know most research shows that, people that are going to not decide not to teach, typically between that year 1 and 5 is when they make that decision. So our question is, how are we supporting those teachers once the formal mentorship is over? Are we ensuring that they're okay, that they have what they need, and what can we set up to support those teachers as well? So we plan to have several meetings with them just to see, if they're okay, they're okay. But if we can provide them with some additional support, we'd like to do that. We have a committee that has met once. We've established some different roles for people to do, so we feel really confident with that. We're going to come back with you with some dates. You'll begin to see some flyers and things of that nature for our different events that we plan to have. And then we also at some point would like to tap into the community, especially when we're talking about helping people prepare for the interview process. What does your resume look like? How do you actually walk into the room and really show yourself? and is that okay? So we would like to get some different supervisors or managers or people from the community, not just within Webster Grove School District, that can give some of our candidates some pointers and tips on interviewing skills and Q&A and resume development, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really hoping to be a resource. And we just so happen, selfishly want to capture the best people, right? So we'll be doing that on the back end, but really, I think the true work there is really being the resource and supporting those applicants as they're moving, circulating through their degree and their program.
Yes. The only thing I don't see in this plan, which I think is really good, is the personal concern that not enough people are being encouraged to go into teaching. You see STEAM everywhere, go into STEAM. But how about teaching engineering, teaching physics? Is there any initiative within the state that you're aware of, or within the region, to get our young people, and the counselors, to kind of direct them to teaching?
Yeah, no, not any initiatives that I've heard of. Mine is a lot of districts are doing what they call grow your own. And I know the high school and Dr. Stricker, he brought some information back from Park Hill District. There are a number of districts that are having this initiative where they are really partnering with their high school counselors and to identify students and to really talk to them about education being an option. So we are setting a meeting up with the high school to process what that could look like. A lot of districts offer either financial incentives, so you can get like a scholarship for your books, or they offer other types of financial incentives for them, or they would offer like a hiring bonus that if you come back and sign on, we'll provide you with the bonus. So we do have some options to look through. Have some different districts that are doing a grow your own kind of process. And I think that'll be crucial at our high school, because I have heard that there are a number of people that are interested in education, whether it be at the collegiate level they're wanting to teach, or even at the high school level. So that is something that we're planning to. I think the high school has something in place now, but we're wanting to really grow and develop that. I just don't have a lot to offer to you right now with that piece.
I know that's becoming more popular with a lot of districts just due to the teacher shortage.
Yeah.
And I know you can go so far as to have an agreement that you're required to come back and work for the district for a year or something in exchange for payment of tuition or whatever it is. So I think that's a really good opportunity perhaps. Question? Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what both of you were talking about is a really good program. And if we could identify students and even have, if somebody from the office would, it's an encouragement and like, wow, you think I can do that? And I think that would be very good. The shares event with diverse candidates, how is that going to take place? Is that by invitation? Is that in cooperation with the university, or is that here, or how's that? What's that kind of look like?
We have been pondering over that because it's really about the space. So what we were hoping to do was to have like an open space where we can have like a basic Q&A, but then again also have some smaller rooms where we could have teachers and or administrators do some, I hate to say PD, but really that's what it is, do 15-20 minute presentation on what School for Today means to us, or what is democratic learning, or those different types of components. Who are we as Webster? Even a presentation on Webster Grove School District and its demographics. So we were hoping to have that here so that we're not worried about necessarily, paying for, a facility or anything like that. We would like for it to be an open invitation with an RSVP, so we can kind of have a good, a way to kind of manage that crowd. We thought that when people would enter, they would get like a little sheet that would say what rotation they would be a part of. So you would start here and then maybe would rotate through the different sessions. But then maybe at some point at the end have a huge Q&A where, questions that are good for the group we can all ask at that time. So that's how we're envisioning it. Don't want to, minimize it. If we get, 200 people, we'd be very happy with that. But we want to build and grow from that. So we're going to do a survey at the end as well to see what we could do differently or what else we could add to make it more meaningful.
Okay, and I would just really continue to encourage, and I know you're pursuing that, the practicum through student teaching and the identification of and a real, I hate to use the word partnership because it's always overused, a good relationship with the placement offices and those people who make those placements, because many times they struggle to find placements for students in the student teaching realm, and getting ahead of the game and having a relationship built already is a plus.
We're hoping to have a meeting with the student teacher placement directors or whatever their titles are here just to kind of share where we are as a district and what we would like and where we would like to go. Because I really would like for it to be more, really more of a partnership where, because oftentimes as principals, I remember saying, new teachers just aren't prepared for what the classroom offers. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for us to really have administrators and teachers really come into classrooms, prepare, share out. And if we do that with the same cohort, maybe even over a year, the higher probability we have of attracting some of those high quality candidates, I think that really puts us in a good position.
I was just going to mention that, Dr. Drake, I don't know if he's still part-time teaching or not, he was a good champion of encouraging students to go into the teaching profession. My second question is, the partnership with the universities, is that only local, or are we reaching out, like Springfield, Rolla, all those different places?
I'm happy you asked. We're actually researching those that have, we are going to reach out around, but we're also researching those universities that have a higher population of diverse and minority candidates in their school of education to try to partner with them. So even if we're doing some Skyping with them, because we're not going to be flying to those places, but that'll be our goal as well, to try to partner with those. Do you have anybody that's from St. Louis, that's a St. Louis resident, that really might consider St. Louis as a student teaching placement? But we're planning to do that as well, to really target those universities that have that higher population of diverse candidates in their schools.
I was talking to the Springfield board members while I was down at the conference, and they're headed with Missouri State in capturing all of those candidates, diverse or not. They could just grabbing them all, putting them in their classrooms, having them participate in all of the school districts there. So,
and that's what I found. A lot of the universities, well, we just send them to, Rittner, or we just send them to Parkway. And I'm thinking, so somewhere along the lines, there have been some lines established, some communication developed, and they just perpetuate that every year, so that those candidates might just be filtering there first, and then whoever's left, let's try Webster. And I don't want us to be a second thought for anybody. I think that we have a phenomenal district that we can offer, to those new teachers. So,
well, to be honest, and I'll say it, that Webster has a reputation that they don't hire minorities. They don't have a diverse hiring practice. So that's been going on for years. Although we do at times, but when you look at the balance of teachers, it kind of indicates that we don't.
And in the absence of having any celebrations on our agenda, I did want to say, first of all, thank you, Dr. Wiley, for this program, but also for your participation in last Tuesday night's State of the District event. I thought you provided a great amount of information, as did Dr. Simpson, Dr. Denbo, Mr. Thomas here, and want to thank them for your participation. I know we're going to hear from Chris in a few minutes on some other things, but I want to thank you guys, because I first of all thought that was an outstanding event, and there was some really crucial information that was shared there, much like what you shared with us tonight. So thank you again to all of you for what you guys did putting that together. Please don't let the overwhelmingly numbered people with the district outnumbering the public deter us from doing it again, or actually making sure that people know that the video or recording of it is out there to be seen as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Dr. Denbo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm going to highlight 5 different things that are currently occurring in the Office of Learning, all centered around providing opportunities for students and looking at making sure that our practices are equitable for all of our students as well. So the first thing that I want to show is I'm going to go over a little bit of our data utilizing our NWEA new benchmark assessment. Let me step back and say that the district APR report was just preliminarily released on Friday. There's been, because of the issues stemming with the Algebra 1 and the English 2 EOC classes and the results from those, that delayed all of the district-wide data. So we just received the very basic reports on Friday. It's all embargoed until it's released to the press on November 15th, I believe, is the date. So I'll have a full student success report at the December 11th board meeting, and where we'll have a much broader look at data. But I just wanted to show a little bit about the benchmark assessment that we started last year, K through 5, and we rolled out to 6th grade this year. So the first couple of slides are going to be looking at just overall mathematics and reading achievement. And you can see according across the bottom, kindergarten through 6th grade, and what the overwhelming data shows overwhelmingly is that our students are entering our school system, our white students and our African American students, with a gap. And that gap continues, and in some cases continues to grow as they move through our school system. We saw this trend last year, and our incoming kindergarten students actually had an even wider gap this year than we saw last year. So that's something that's concerning when we're talking about early interventions and what we need to do for our youngest students when they're coming in kindergarten and 1st grade. What, we're looking at having those discussions right now.
Are you, I'm sorry, real quick. Are you taking into account or monitoring which kids had early childhood? Is that something that you're?
We've talked about that,
Okay.
and that can be, I'll make a note of that, that can be something, because we've had those conversations, and part of the issue is our enrollment forms do indicate, ask the parents to indicate if they've had preschool, and part of it for us is determining if they actually went through a preschool program versus a daycare program.
Yeah.
There's a nuance there, and so it is a piece of data that we absolutely can look
Yeah, I
at.
would love to have that info.
Yeah, we could survey the parents too on we need to do that.
So you can see that the gap for mathematics ranges anywhere from 14.8 points all the way up to 21-point difference between our white students and our African American students. You see a similar, you see a similar gap with reading. Our incoming kindergarten students come in with an 11.7 point gap, and that gap goes all the way up to 19.2 when they reach the 6th grade. So certainly, again, looking at that early intervention, because whereas we obviously don't want to see a gap that already exists continue to grow. So we need to do everything we can in our power to identify those needs early, find those interventions for those students, and try and eliminate that gap rather than have it continue to sit there, or in some cases grow. The other thing I wanted to show you is, because now for the first time we have this year-to-year data, we looked at cohorts of students, and we looked at their achievement at the end of their school year last year versus their achievement at this first benchmark assessment in the fall, which we just ended about 2 weeks ago. So one of the things that is always talked about is the summer slide of where the students, how far did they regress over the summer, or if they did regress, and just talking about what could we possibly do, how could we promote some of our summer programs, either in the district or locally, to help address this. So you can see that it was interesting for both math, and I'll show you here in a second for reading. Our incoming 1st graders actually had higher achievement. They actually gained achievement over the summer. So whether or not they're participating in our summer school program, and that's another data point we could look at, or in another program offered throughout the district, if they were in some sort of summer school academy, like a preschool academy or somewhere, that would be good information. But you can see that as the years go on, the summer slide continues to grow, and in some cases there wasn't a general trend between our white students and our African American students. It was kind of all over the place, and our African American students in some cases outperformed our white students, or they didn't regress, or they didn't regress as far, or they actually grew more than our white students.
Dr. Debo,
Yeah.
quick question for you, much kind of on the same lines of Amy's question on preschool versus daycare, as you mentioned. One of the things that was talked about at one point in time in the Equity in Education group was not only getting information out to people about preschool options, not just daycare, but preschool options, both within our group, our Ambrose Center, but in the community. But also, I think there was some consideration for trying to do a lot more leading into the summer suggestions to our families to say, hey, this is something we've noticed over the years, but we would suggest that you consider this, and this, and get that information out for programs that are available to make a dent in this kind of thing.
I think that's a good suggestion. I know that there's been talks of what can we do to help build the possibilities for preschool for not just within our district, but wouldn't it be lovely if we could build a consortium or collaboration with everybody around who has that opportunity or has that potential. The one thing I wanted to point out here, to your point, Steve, is that first grade, and this again would be a good piece of data, and I can work with John M. on this, but our largest group of students participating in our summer school program by far was our first grade. So to see that for both reading and math, we saw actual gains over the summer.
I don't
versus
think
the
that's a
summer
coincidence. I think that's direct reflection.
It would be good to get the names of the kids who are actually participating and do a comparison of that cohort of students versus the students who didn't participate, because that would be a good piece of data.
Matter of fact, I will send you the information from the MSBA meeting. North Kansas City did a very similar program at one of their schools where they actually had, I'm going to call it an extended school year, they called it something else, but they saw some unbelievable results based upon additional 31 days on the calendar for those students. And those students were extremely below where they needed to be. So that would correlate with that.
So the next slide is, I wanted to show you, just based on this fall benchmarking, what NWEA does is they have a linking study compared in a very generic way, comparing state standards to their achievement. So they have a good correlation between how students perform on this benchmark assessment versus how they predict they'll perform on a state assessment. Now, currently, they're utilizing just a very generic linking study because the Missouri learning standards are brand new. So after this year, when we have a year of the new assessments, we have new assessments coming online this year. After this year, they'll be able to link directly with our Missouri standards on this particular report, where you can see, have a predictor of proficiency on the number of students who score proficient or advanced on the state assessment versus how are they doing on this assessment. But I can tell you that Tim did a fabulous job this summer. He did a pretty quick, well, not quick, a detailed look at our achievement for the MAP test for in the spring versus the spring and NWEA results, and we had about an 80 to 85% correlation between where the students achieved on the MAP test versus where they achieved on the NWEA, which is a pretty strong correlation. So it is a pretty good predictor, and you can see right now, just based on the fall benchmark, just this last one that finished 2 weeks ago, where the percentage of students, both in math and reading, and for our white students and our African American students, the percentage of proficient and advanced, they're predictors. This is pretty similar to what we see with our state MAP test right now. And the last thing that I wanted to show you is I mentioned last year when I gave a brief overview of this assessment that they use what's called the RIT score. And so in this graph, you can see the different grades that are tested. For both math and for reading, you can see that what the national mean RIT score is for that grade at this time versus what our district mean is. And you can see across the board in every grade level, and in both math and reading, the district is achieving at a higher rate than the national mean. So that's just another data point for you to look at.
Do they break the national means down by groups?
Yes, and I can pull that.
Okay.
So you could show us where our African-American students compare this stat, but based on, okay, that would be
Like,
interesting.
yeah.
That'd be good information.
That would be good information.
Another question, do they break that down by free and reduced lunch, by socioeconomic status?
We don't have that capability with that. No.
Okay.
The way the data is pulled, they don't have that special group. We can pull it by gender and by ethnicity.
So we can pull it, or they can, or?
They don't even offer that. The way the data uploads, I don't even think it's part of their platform.
Really? That's
Yeah.
interesting. Because I would be curious on the very first slide, or the first series of slides, what the free and reduced lunch students who are white and free and reduced lunch students who are black, and make those comparisons with the non-free and reduced lunch and the free and reduced lunch students.
Right.
That way you really isolate a group
Right.
that you can target specifically.
We can do that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about another data spreadsheet that we're creating.
Mhm.
And we have that information, we would just have to pull it by hand.
Okay. That would be good data.
Give that to our assessment director.
What? Okay, I'm writing these down, and I'll work on these. Okay, so that's the last data slide. Do you have any questions about just the?
Have you looked at it for gender? I'm sorry. Is it consistent for gender when you look at those numbers? Is there a big difference between boys and girls?
There tends to be differences in
Both categories?
Both categories. There tends to be a little bit of a split in math and a little bit of a split in ELA, just as girls tend to outperform in ELA and boys tend to outperform in math. A little bit, not much, but I can pull that too. Do you want to see that?
I would love to see that, just out of curiosity.
Trinity, I think you had your hand up too.
Yes. In the high school, I know that we have a group called Webster Challenge to bridge the achievement gap between people of color and Caucasians. And I know that these stats are for 6th grade and under, so I was wondering, or 5th grade and under, I was wondering if there's a group or if there's, what are you guys doing to help bridge that gap for the younger grades?
Right. So we have other data points that we collect for 7th. This is through 6th grade for this year. So we have other data points that we gather for 7th and 8th grade and then high school separately. This assessment will roll up to middle school next year. We're rolling it up with the students. So as far as high school in particular, I'll just go ahead and jump to that. We have created a data matrix, a data spreadsheet, where we're tracking multiple pieces of data, academic data, attendance, discipline, whether or not students are in AP classes, honors classes, are they participating in extracurriculars, if they're in a special class, either gifted or need some sort of remediation, we're tracking all of those pieces of data, all the way down to, what kind of electives they're picking and things like that. So we're trying to narrow in the focus of that data so we can have those discussions with the administrations about what are the needs of the students, because we also want to take the information that we're receiving from the teachers on what's happening in the classroom. What are the formative assessments? What are the types of assessments that are going on in the classroom? And utilize that information as well. So did I answer your question? It's kind of a broader look, but we're trying to look at it in a broad way, but also being able to narrow it down to every single student of color to make sure that we're meeting every single student's needs.
Kind of related to that, is the data better able to track individual students and their progress from year to year? Besides the whole
This
class?
data?
Yeah.
Yes. This data, what you can do is you can track it from year to year. And so in the past, the way I describe it is in more traditional looks of data, when you're looking at percentiles, those are always normed by other, say you're looking at 3rd grade scoring percentiles. Well, that's normed with other 3rd grade graders taking it in the spring. Well, spring, there's two things to consider. The spring is large. It can be March to May or June. This goes down as detailed as the week that students are testing. So these students are normed with other students who are in the 8th week of school. So there's not that range. So it's very narrow. You're comparing like groups of students. And then the percentile, the norms of a spring 3rd grade is going to be different than the norms of a fall 4th grade. You're kind of comparing apples and oranges. Whereas this allows you to track progress and growth over time. The scale doesn't change. So the scale is the same whether or not you're a kindergartner or an 8th grader. So the score, if for instance you have a 3rd grader who has a 191 in math and you have a 6th grader who has a 191 in math, they're performing at approximately the same level. So you can compare different groups of students, different ages of students over time, longitudinally, or in the moment. So it allows us to track that.
And then also, do you only have stats on white and black, or do you also have other races?
We do. We have any ethnicity that we currently have in the district. Some of our ethnic groups are so small, though, statistically speaking, if it's less than 10, they're not statistically viable to have those numbers.
Okay.
You just know that just one student can really skew it if it's less than 10. So we only have maybe one, I'd have to look, one or two other ethnic groups that have a large enough groups of students consistently across all grade levels to be able to compete.
Does that take into account also like Title I kids, SPED kids, gifted kids, and EL kids? Does it?
Are we tracking that?
Right.
Yeah.
For this particular thing?
Well, we're tracking it through the spreadsheet.
Okay.
So
It doesn't show up on this particular.
Mhm.
And if you could go back to like the summer slide.
Reading or math?
Reading. All right, it's math. Because what I found was interesting is 6th grade had, you know, I understand 4th grade and 5th grade, and, you know, 3rd grade's kind of an anomaly. 6th grade's an anomaly, and you go to reading, and you see the anomaly in 6th grade and 3rd grade again,
Right.
which, have you guys given any thoughts to why the anomaly like that?
Yeah, I don't know. That would be something to dig into. We can have conversations with the administrators and the teachers. Off the top of my head, I don't know that.
Okay,
I
okay.
have a hypothesis on why that is.
And I know probably what I'm going to say is not popular, that this can all be traced back to buildings, correct? And to grades, and it can go all the way down through to the students. Okay.
And we've got a time where we're going to be meeting with principals because the fall testing didn't end that long ago.
Mhm.
So we're kind of, and Chris is going to touch on some other things that are happening, but sharing this data with them and talking about it. And again, the spreadsheet that Chris is referencing is specifically just for our African American students. It was something that kind of came out of our goals and discussions. It is extraordinarily detailed. There's a lot of information. Part of that is because, you know, our children aren't doing as well, and we know it's no fault of their own. And so what can we do as a school system, and how can we track all these different types of data? And so we have approximately 650 kids from K through 12 that are in a spreadsheet. And so we're looking to find, you know, because we don't have a good system or warehouse system, we're looking to try and do it ourselves. So it takes a lot of time. But we're hoping to notice where are the trends and where kids are doing really well, where are they not doing well, you know, some of the different possible, you know, effects of participation in certain things, you know, are they participating in an after-school activity or not? You know, we're not going down to the granular level of are they playing this sport? Are they doing this drama? Are they doing strings? But it's, are they active outside of the school day? So we're trying to, beyond 650, it would become more unmanageable because it's a lot of Chris and I and some of our assistants that are entering the data. And we're looking to update it. We're looking to populate it every single month too, and just to keep it fresh and keep it in front of administrators too. So anyway, I just wanted to add that component.
Yeah, I just wanted to encourage everyone to keep, you know, it sounds trite, but keep the eye on the ball, because in the business, there's so many things that can divert your attention from the prize and the goal. And Dr. Simpson and I have talked about this, that with the class sizes that we have, with the salaries that we offer our staff, with the resources that we have at every building, we ought to be performing a little bit better than this. And, you know, I know I'm not going to speak for the rest of the board. My expectation is that these all get reversed from the negative to the positive, and that whatever other things that we've done that haven't worked, we find whatever works to close that gap, because those students are constantly behind, and it's not fair to them over the course of their educational career, nor the course of their career after high school.
So the next steps, to your point, the next steps for this is we just ended the progress monitor, or the benchmark window 2 weeks ago, and so we just completed some additional training around the progress monitoring component of this program. So now, again, we've had progress monitoring in the past, but this is the first time that it's aligned to the Missouri state standards. So we have this process available to us. So working with the administrators and working with the teachers to help them utilize this component so they can really track, okay, these are the skills, these are that this particular student needs to work on. We've identified those, and now I can do some remediation in my class, and I can track whether or not they're gaining mastery over those areas. So that's the next step. The secondarily to this, to John's point, Tim and some other administrators were having conversations around data warehousing. What can we do to either not develop ourselves, but see if there's a system out there that helps us with this, so that we're not spending our time doing the clerical end of it, whereas we could spend that time creating the processes and the procedures to help with some of this versus the clerical. And there's platforms out there. We just need to find the one that works within our system.
All right.
Just got a few more.
Sorry.
I know you heard that bell and Emerson said 8.
No, I actually was going to say something, but
Okay.
So a couple of other things I wanted to highlight is that this year I worked with Julie Parr, and she did a wonderful job. She is our ELA coordinator, and we've realigned the reading assessments that we're utilizing to identify students who need reading interventions, so that there is a consistency across the board, and we do have a normal curve equivalent that we can utilize to compare students from kindergarten through 8th grade. So we added the Slauson oral reading test that can be used in conjunction, that's K through 5, that's used in conjunction with our 6 through 8 SRI. So we have that ability. The other thing that we've done is that we've realigned our guided reading level recommendations to be aligned to the Columbia University's Teachers College recommendations for what guided reading levels students should end up at by the end of each grade level. They're a little bit more stringent than they have been in the past. That will help us be aligned to more of the curriculum and the resources that we're utilizing in the classroom, and it also makes us more aligned with what other surrounding districts are expecting of their teachers at the ends of different grades. The other two more things. Talking about the high school and their course catalog, I've been in discussion with The administrators at the high school has been in discussion with different teachers and different department chairs, just looking around at the current high school course catalog, and looking at the prerequisite classes that are currently in place, as well as any grade requirements that might have been put in place. And again, like I said at the State of the District last week, I don't think there was any bad intentionality about these, and it's probably things that have just accrued over time and just were put in place and things like that. But we're taking a look at the tracks that have been developed because of these prerequisites, and maybe the grades, recommendations or prerequisites that have been put in place to make sure that we aren't putting up barriers of access for some of our students. And I'll give an example. Currently, students are recommended in 8th grade, about January, they're recommended whether or not they should go into a regular class or an accelerated class as they enter 9th grade. If a student isn't recommended to be in the biology, the accelerated version of biology in 9th grade, is extremely difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'll say virtually impossible for that student to access an AP science class by the time they reach a senior year. So you're kind of establishing their science track in January of their 8th grade year, all the way through high school. That's not, and again, I don't think there was purposeful intentionality on that, but those are the types of things that we're looking at to make sure that we're making sure that kids have equal access.
Are we looking at the math program as well? The math?
We're looking
It's
at
the
all
same
of it.
thing, that's even earlier.
Right, we're looking at all of it. And so there's some things that we're looking for as far as going to change next year for middle school math, accessibility for algebra, and opening that up more for students. And again, just starting having those conversations and start unpeeling some of those layers that have built up over the years. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight is that Webster Rock Hill Ministries last year developed a tutoring program for the students of the community, and last year it was once a week. This year they've expanded it to twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so they reached out to us, John E. Thomas and I met with Ed Johnson several weeks ago. We were just talking about ways that we could really partner with them for the betterment of our students. And so what we came up with is the development of a tutoring liaison position. We have a woman in our community who's a retired educator who is going to work, and she's going to be that liaison between the schools and the tutors at Webster Rock Hill so that they are communicating on the appropriate needs for students. Tutoring is great, but it's best if it's not done kind of in a random manner. And so if she will be the person who's touching base with the teachers of the students who have signed up for this tutoring and really working with the tutors at Webster Rock Hill so they know what are the needs of those specific students. And they've already filled their tutoring program to capacity.
Yeah.
And so I know Ed is dreaming big about satellite locations and expanding that, but right now we thought that would be the best way that we could help meet the needs of those students and support those who are helping support our students.
Good.
I'm glad to see the school districts has established that with him and with the ministry up there, because I think we'll see some fruit out of that on the students' end.
Yeah. I was
Specifically.
just talking about that program yesterday. That's great. Great.
We're also going to encourage staff members to go and participate, just be a volunteer, the tutors there, be a volunteer tutor. They're also, as part of that program, inviting people in to kind of tell their stories as a way to help encourage and inspire the students who are there. So we're going to try and get as many people we can to go there and also support both the students as well as the adults.
That seems like that would be a good way for high schoolers to get their A+ hours also.
Yeah,
Because those are hard to get sometimes.
they are.
Excellent.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Will somebody make sure that those slides get put in board docs, because I don't think they're in there, at least I didn't see them. And I want to make sure they're available to the public. And then any additional data that you all compile can be added. I think that's good for everybody to be able to see.
Okay.
Would you like me to compile that before or show that at a next board meeting or the different data points that I was writing?
Just have these for now.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
once you
maybe
get
once
the
you
new
update
data.
it, just shoot us an email and say I've added to it, and that way we know to look. Thank you.
Chris, will you work with Sherry to do that?
Okay, we now have our second opportunity for public comments. Mr. Buck?
A while ago, I came across a document that showed that the district broadly classified its students into 3 groups. One was the gifted, that was the smallest. The second was called creative thinkers, that was the next smallest. But by far the largest were called high achievers. And my question in that regard is simply this: is there a need, benefit, or value to the district to increase the challenge level of some, many, or all of the classes, so that these kids are truly stretched and that they reach and exceed their potential and accomplish things they never thought possible? Because right now, I don't have any data, hard data like Chris. You know, I haven't done any studies, I don't have any statistics and stuff, but I have the benefit of many years of parent input and student input. And again, my twins graduated last spring and they're now at Tulane and Butler, and I just talked to them today on this very subject. And the point is that the consistent feedback is that the challenge level can be increased. That some of the classes were in fact easy, that at best they were medium challenges, and these are kids who even took accelerated, honors, and AP classes. So I'm not trying to criticize, I would never criticize the district. All I'm saying is that there's some kids that are capable and have the potential to do more. And so how can we challenge them? And the other thing that I would say to that regard is that we talk a lot about academic and personal success. Well, sometimes when you pursue a challenge, you fail. Well, there's great learning in failure because you learn from your mistakes. You learn what not to do. You learn what to do. And you do it again, and you make it, and you feel great about yourself, and you go on to greater success. So I'm just saying I think challenge is an underutilized concept, and its potential can be great in the district.
Thank you. Other public comments? If not, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve consent agenda items 7.01, 7.02, 7.03, 7.04, 7.05, and 7.06.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, anything else?
I don't, I'm waiting for a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You have to face Emerson.
What time did we say? 8:15?
It's 8:13.